Hello and welcome. You are listening to the Third Thursday podcast with your hosts, Harry Ozarek and Ben McEntee, where we hope to connect, encourage, and equip student ministry leaders of today. This is a resource provided by the Rocky Mountain District of the Christian and Missionary Alliance, and you can find us on all major podcast platforms. Please hit the like, subscribe, and share buttons to help others be connected, encouraged, and equipped to reach students with the gospel. Here are your hosts, Harry and Ben.
All right, welcome to the Third Thursday podcast, where we want to connect, encourage, and equip our youth leaders. My name is Harry Ozarek. I'm the point person here in the Rocky Mountain District for the youth, and I am joined by our co-host. All right, there is no one-person show here. Well, I am joined by my co-host, Ben. Ben, give us a shout.
Hey, glad to be here. Ben McEntee. I am the associate pastor at Alliance Fellowship Church in Bozeman, Montana, where I get to serve children and youth. And excited to be here. Excited for this conversation today.
Right. So this is the very first episode of our Third Thursday podcast, and the topic of the day is prepping for fall launch. But before we get to that, I just have one little funny that I want to send out to you. All right.
Got it.
It's a thinker. Okay. I don't know if you've ever heard of shower thoughts before, but things that just come to you right as you're showering. And this is
I have
one.
a few. Okay.
Yeah, right. It's a great time to think sometimes. When you grow up, I don't know if you noticed, but people stop asking you what your favorite toy is.
Oh, okay. So if this is the question, what is my favorite toy? Is this the question?
Well, no, it's just curious what you think of that. Do you think that's true? Do people stop asking you about what your favorite toy is? Or does the word toy just, change? Like we don't call many things toys when you become adults, right? But if we're honest, we all have quote unquote toys as we get older. You know,
my toys just get more expensive, right?
Right.
As you get older. Yeah.
So yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, yeah. So I still have toys, but I don't call them toys.
Right. Exactly. Right. That's what I was thinking about, right? Is no one asks you about your favorite toy, but I think we still have toys. We just don't like calling them toys, even though that's what they are,
No. I like my guitars, I guess, are my toys.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Right. That would be. Yeah. I like guitars.
Yeah.
I don't know. I collect vinyl records. Is that a toy? Would you consider that a toy?
Depending on the age that's handling them, you wouldn't want your 4-year-old grabbing one of those,
Oh well, my kids do collect records too. They get all
do
these.
They?
Yeah. We get them all the old storybook ones, and they rattle those off in the summer and winter and stuff. It's nice. It's good.
Love it.
It's good
Love
times.
It. Right? Boat. I have a boat, and I say boat because I'm from Minnesota originally. All right, so we.
You say it like how? How do you say it?
Boat.
Boat.
Yeah.
Boat.
You get the old.
I say boat.
Yeah.
Boat. Wait, hold on though. Okay, all right. How do you say pillow?
Pillow? Yeah. Don't say pillow. That's
I
my
say
one.
pillow. I
no.
say pillow. I do.
No.
I get a lot of flack from my family for saying pillow.
You don't say milk, do you?
No.
Okay.
I don't.
All right.
Wait. How is it?
Well, okay, so...
No, hold on, because I might. I say milk.
Milk or milk?
Milk.
Oh, no. So, do you say pillow? Do you say pillow or pillow?
Pillow. Okay, hey, hold on, because now I'm really thinking about it, so I just have to put it in a sentence.
Let's go.
Hey, give me that pillow.
You say pillow. Straight up, you say pillow.
I do. I know, I do. It's pillow. Isn't that right?
It is pillow. Yep, with an I.
Yeah, I know. It's not, I know. I can spell pillow, but I pronounce it pillow. Not pillow.
I love it. Well, thank you, those of you that are
Mm-hmm.
listening and joining us in this conversation today. Again, our topic for the day, our conversation for the day is preparing for fall launch. And youth leaders all over the world, all over the U.S. and so on, are probably starting to think about what are we going to be doing. And so we want to
Hmm.
just kind of frame the conversation a little bit. And so the first question I have, Ben, for you and myself and anyone
Yep.
else listening is, what comes to mind when we think about fall launch? I know for me, it can feel like a very big event.
Hmm.
So big is what comes to mind a lot of times. I don't know if
Sure.
that's always the right thing,
Sure.
but that's definitely something. But curious what you think. What comes to mind, Ben, when you think of
Yeah, I
fall
mean, I think
launch?
I was thinking summer's ending, school is about to begin. We're as people working with youth, serving youth either as a pastor or a director, where as our young people are going back to school, there's something new happening. There's changes. Grades are going up. People are going up in different grades, ages, etc. So you're just thinking about how are we going to leverage these opportunities that are going to come out of them going back to school. So I just think of there's opportunities, there's a newness, there's like new beginnings. Um, I like to do my calendar, right? Like you just start thinking about calendar stuff,
Yeah.
and just
Yep.
and that and that I don't typically do a ministry calendar January to December. I have that kind of, but mostly I'm doing school year, so
Yeah.
end of August through into May or June, wherever it is that you land. So those are the things I'm thinking about, just kind of
Yep.
organizing and then thinking about those opportunities that are coming up.
Yeah, right. Another word that comes to mind when I think of fall launch is exciting or excitement, right? It's getting to
Yeah,
start, like you mentioned, the new, the reset. It's like, all right, the previous year's done. Now we get to, strike out onto a new path. And
absolutely.
that always gets me just pumped. That gets me incredibly excited. I think sometimes we can get lost in the weeds of thinking about fall launch and thinking of all the
Mhm.
things that we need to get done and
Mhm.
forgetting that God really wants to do something awesome and unique in this time. And he wants to do something new. Um,
Yeah,
and so,
absolutely.
yeah, as I press in, right, that's one of my favorite things. Now, that's just me. I love new things. I love new challenges and stuff like that. And so that's not
Yeah.
that's not everyone, but
No,
um,
I think that's great, and I love the word. I think the word launch really speaks to that, right?
yeah, yeah.
So, because that's something new. It's exciting. It's big, right? Yeah.
Yep. Well, and you mentioned busyness too when we were talking about this subject
Mhm.
earlier, and kind of what are your thoughts on that busyness side of things? Because we both
Sure. Well,
had some interesting ideas.
yeah, I think as we're talking about fall launch and summer's ending, we're kicking off some new things. We're doing new things. We can get really busy, and I think
Mm,
in our culture, like being busy is to be important. There's this desire to be busy, that just for the sake of being busy. That if I can say, hey, I got a lot of stuff to do, then and just for that, then I'm missing the point. We are going to be busy, but what there's a lot of things to do, but why are we doing those things? I think that goes down to the
yeah. Yep.
why. Why are we're going to have a big event or a small event or whatever it is, or micro events, however it is you want to describe it. But what is the point of those things?
Yeah.
What are they going to be leading to? And what's your the thing that you're trying to achieve and go, and where are you trying to see your young people grow into?
Yeah. No, I love that, and that totally helps, bring us to our next thought,
Yeah.
right? Which is, how do we funnel all of these ideas and motivations? How do we funnel that down, right, into something that we can really grab a hold of and be a filter? Because though we want to say yes to a lot of things, every year we're going to have to say no to things as well, right? We don't have an
Yeah.
infinite amount of time. And so how do we figure out, how do we decipher what God wants us to be doing, right? So these two questions that I want to throw out. One question is, how do my fall plans advance our ministry goals and lead our
Mhm.
group into the winter and throughout the school year, right? That's one
Mhm.
question. The other
Mhm.
question is, how do my fall plans equip and build up myself, the youth, and the leaders? Right. I think
Yeah.
sometimes we hit the first two, and we'll get on to it. We'll touch on it a little bit later too, on another point. But we forget about the leader point part of it.
Right.
We go, well, I got to make sure I can still do these things, and we're like, well, obviously the youth, right? But an important piece that we're going to be talking about more today is caring for those leaders, and how does this affect your leaders, right? You need
Absolutely.
them throughout the whole school year, and how you start off in the fall can kind of project or set a course for how the rest of the year is going to go.
For sure. I think
And
the moral of that is love your volunteers, love those who are helping you in youth ministry, and we love
yeah,
you. If you're listening to this and you serve your church and your youth group, like, you are so important. We value you. You are amazing and awesome. And any way that as a youth pastor you can show love to those people, man, it's incredible. You got to do it. You got
yep,
to do it. Yep.
yep.
So important.
And so needed, right? There's so many opportunities with youth, that we're never quite feeling like we're able to get enough people to fill those opportunities, right? And so people being willing to step up and step into that is paramount, huge. And when we talk about appreciating our leaders, sometimes it's not always the big things that mean the most. It's the little consistent things that you can be doing, the thank yous and the positive gestures of, paying for a meal
100%.
for a leader meeting or something like that can
Exactly.
speak volumes when that's consistent throughout. So,
Exactly.
so going back to this first question, how do my
Yep.
fall plans advance our ministry goals? I guess my thought and question to that is, do you have ministry goals, and what are they?
Right.
Where does God, better question, where does God have you going as a youth ministry? And then everything that we're doing, right, should be funneling through that. And for me, that's
Absolutely.
so helpful to not just be swimming in an ocean, right? But to really understand that there's this river that God wants us to be traveling down,
Yep.
and things are going to come, using that same analogy, off the bank, trying to jump into that river, and we have to be able to
Yep.
say yes to some and no to others, because we're heading in a specific direction.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's so important. And just that swimming in the ocean, that how you just described that, I think that's perfect. How well, let's think about it this way. If you're hearing that and you go like, I don't know what those things are, sit yourself down, think about your youth group, right? Write it down. Like, what are like 5 things, right? It could be 2, it could be 3, but think about 5. What are 5 things that my youth need right now? Right? Where is it? My youth group, we need to be talking about speaking loving kindness towards one another, and not and maybe like being in too many cliques, or maybe there's gossiping happening in our
Yeah.
youth group. How are we gonna how are we gonna address that? How are we gonna tell people to speak
Yep.
the truth in love? Those sorts of things. Like, what are those things? Those ministry goals that you have for your students, specifically for your students, because what my students need is going to be different than what your students need or anyone else's students need. You got to just
Yep.
sit down and think about that, instead of just grabbing this and this and that. But what
Yeah.
is the specific needs for your kids at that right time, or your students rather?
Yeah, absolutely. Another word or phrase that I use in place of goals, just because I think oftentimes it can describe it better, is core values. What are the
Yeah.
core values of your youth ministry? Because what you value is where you will go, right?
Yeah.
That's just a fact of life for any of us. What we value, it's going to show up in our life, day-to-day life,
Yep.
and throughout it, right? So what are the core values that God has pressed on you and your leaders' hearts for your youth
Absolutely.
ministry? And my encouragement there is, don't get lost in the weeds on making them too complicated. Like, again, for this Third Thursday podcast, we have 3 core values that direct what we do and why we do it. We want to connect, we want to encourage, and we want to equip. And so it doesn't have to be super complicated, right? It can be it can be super simple, but very effective. And
Yeah.
so that's the goals. And then this other questions, like the objectives, right? It's so the second question we asked was, how do my fall plans equip and build up myself, the youth, and my leaders, right? This is where the rubber meets the road. We have these values, these goals.
Yep.
Now, how do I live them out, right? Many people have
Absolutely.
Wednesday night ministries, Sunday morning ministries, special events, things like that can kind of start finding their way and fitting But why? Why do you do those things? And then how can they actually help the why, right?
Yeah, and I think it might be counterintuitive to us to think, oh, we're putting myself first in
Mm,
this list. What are the ways that uh, 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 you're going to build up you, and
yeah.
then the youth, and then your leaders? Uh, and we might go, oh, I got to be humble. I got to put myself at the bottom of this. But
Mm,
how are you in your weekly actions and movements, just sitting down and
mm,
going, like, I got to prep for this lesson. I don't
yeah.
know what's. I got to make sure that I'm having my own devotional time. That's not doesn't have anything to do with the lesson that I'm going to be teaching or in preaching or anything. But it's just like, God, what are you speaking into my life where you are modeling what you would hope is happening in the homes of your students, right? Where you're in the word, you're praying. I know these are hard things. These are spiritual disciplines, which we don't like that word. So what they're spiritual good habits, right? To have these things, you want to be making sure that you're doing that so that you are equipped, so that you are built up, so that then you can serve your leaders and your
Yeah.
youth and their families, and setting that time aside. And then if you do that, if you are building yourself up in your relationship with the Lord, then your youth and your leaders, that will all, it's just like dominoes. It will grow into those other relationships that you have. So don't
Mm,
neglect yourself. I'm not saying that this is some prideful thing where you go, look how great I am. No, it's just understanding that if we're going to lead others, we're going to have to
yeah.
make sure that we're setting time aside for
Yes.
ourselves to really grow in our relationship with the Lord. Because if you're dry and you're trying to feed people, you just can't. You
Yep.
can't. It's
Yep.
you're gonna die on the vine, man. You're gonna get burned out, and that's
Yeah.
terrible. We don't want that.
Right. We want to be overflowing, right?
Hmm.
Instead of pulling from reserves that don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so I think that is a piece that gets missed quite often as well.
Totally.
100% agree with you. And how do your fall plans provide space for you to stay healthy, for you to be, yeah, leading from a place of fullness?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. All right, so when we ask those two questions, that might be where most people end up stop with this podcast and they're like, shoot, man, I got to figure those things out. And that's great. Do that. Hit pause right now and start, noodling and praying on what
Write it
God
down.
would have for you there. Because those two really set the course. That's what I
Hmm.
hear you saying, Ben. Um, and that's what was in my head is they really set the course for where you're going. And if we can't answer those two questions, we can be busy, bringing it back to one of those previous points, right? But are
Right.
we going to be effective, right? And we want
Yep.
to be effective in our busyness. And have balance.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so
Yep.
when we look at the school year, right? What are some different things, Ben, that are on your heart, on your mind, of different attributes or different ways that a youth ministry kind of ministers
Sure.
or lives out their values throughout the school
Yeah.
year?
Yeah. I think we think about is there going to be a theme, right? Are we
Mm,
going to have um, any? Where's the direction you've created? We want you to have core values. Create those core values. What's the goal? Where's the needs are for? And then out of that, what's a theme for that school year, right? And that can be connected to your teaching plan, whether you're creating that on your own or if you're using curriculum. And there's some
mm,
great curriculum out there that has themes for that you can use. If you're a creative type and you want to create your own theme, go for it, right?
yeah.
Just make sure
Yep.
that it's funneling through those core values and the mission and the needs of your people in this season, in this year, in this school year. So I think theme is important, and that's one thing for sure.
Yeah. What are some different curriculums that you've interacted with? I have a couple in my mind, but
Sure.
do you write your own? I have some different friends that write their own curriculum,
Right.
and then I have others that really leverage and lean on curriculums that were written by professionals, meaning I'm not a professional curriculum writer. Maybe someone listening is, and props to you, man. I don't know if I could ever do that. But
Yeah, I've used Orange in the past, which I enjoy some of it. You can find criticism about any curriculum you want, and I
yeah,
can sit here and highlight things about Orange or
yep,
and criticize it as well. A True Identity, I don't even know if it exists anymore, but that was David C. Cook's
yeah, yep,
curriculum. And years back, I actually helped kind of beta test that, uh, um, and helped kind of format some of that back then. And that's a good curriculum. I know that Christian Missionary Alliance, don't we? I know that children, does the youth have its own curriculum too? And forgive me if I'm being,
not
you know,
yet. No, that's a great
right,
question. Not yet. They've partnered with other curriculums in the past in
right.
the sense of promoting. So they
Hmm.
haven't partnered in the way you brought up the children's ministry for the Alliance Kids. They've
Right.
partnered with Discovery Land,
Hmm.
and so that's a great curriculum. If you're wanting children's ministry curriculum, go check out the C&MA website and go look for the Discovery Land Alliance Kids curriculum. It's awesome. We use it at our church. Um, Download Youth Ministry is another one
Yep.
that I've used in the past. That they do, I think, a really good job kind of filtering out and having quality. As well as I've kind of stepped away at different seasons from the big curriculums, as I would call them, and
Yeah.
instead kind of set out and utilize other resources.
Yep.
Um, because of a specific, as we mentioned earlier, a specific theme, right, or a specific idea that God's laid on our hearts, myself and my leaders, that we want to see our youth press into this aspect more throughout the year. And so this year is one of those years. We're going to utilize the book Essential Truths of the Christian Life.
Yeah.
And so this is an awesome, awesome, awesome book. It has 17 chapters and it's just what it sounds like. It takes you through the essential truths of the Christian life. And one of my thoughts that I had with my leaders and then some key youth that I talked to about this prior to deciding on it,
Hmm.
is if the fundamentals of the Christian faith doesn't get you excited, doesn't get you filled up with passion and excitement and courage and things like that, then we really need to, in my opinion, need to take a step back and look at what our faith is. And that's
Yeah.
been a challenge to myself. That's not a challenge necessarily to anyone specifically. That's a challenge that I've faced on my own faith. Is if the fundamentals of what it means to follow Jesus and what He has done doesn't get me up in the morning and get me excited, then I need to examine where my faith and relationship with Jesus is at, right? And
Yeah.
so we're excited about stepping into that. So if anyone wants another resource, Essential Truths of the Christian Life, 17 lessons. And so it's a discipleship resource that is just super, super awesome. And it goes with another series by Joel Van Hoogen and Charles A. Cook. And so Pathway to
That's
the
good
Soul.
stuff, man. I
Yep.
love that. Yeah, you can find books to kind of be a launching pad for a curriculum.
Yep.
We're doing in the fall. Our plan is to do a series called Questions Jesus Asked,
Ooh.
where it's kind of just
Yeah.
going through and just pulling out these questions, and then it's kind of be a survey then of the Gospels. We're able
Yeah.
to pull those there, and then and that happens to just go in line with my senior pastor. He's going through the Gospels in chronological order. So
Mm.
then we're kind of going to be hitting on some things that either he is getting to or going to get to, and I think that's always good stuff too.
Yeah.
So I'm not using a whole lot of curriculum right now. I use it every once in a while. Summer right now we're
Yep.
doing a piece of curriculum, but in the school year we're gonna do that. And then I'm wrestling with starting doing something on Genesis,
Oh, there
especially
you go.
just with everything happening in regards to men and women and relationships
Mm-hmm.
and all of the confusion that goes on that we're seeing in the culture. Just going back to Genesis and saying,
Yeah.
look at the creative order that God has, and
Yep.
that's an area where I look at and go, that's something we need to be talking about our students, and that's an essential truth,
Yep.
right? So I think those essential things. You don't have to rewrite the book. Just you don't have to create anything. Just go to the essentials, and you can never fail.
I'm so happy you went back to that of, right, we can get lost in curriculum really quick. And
Hmm.
I think one of my biggest encouragements to any youth leaders out there is don't get lost in the weeds of curriculum. We're trying to teach youth what God has said and
Yeah.
who he is and what he wants for us to be doing in service of him. And right, following him, have a relationship with him. What does that mean? What does that look like? We
Yep.
have the greatest resource already, and I think sometimes we can get lost and stepping out and forget that it's about God and his son Jesus, Holy Spirit, and his word right there in front of us, teaching and learning as we teach as well. And
Yeah.
so important. Curriculum is just a fancy word for teaching, and right, we're leveraging something to try to get something across, and that can be really good, but not to the detriment of teaching the word, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
um so as we look, there's some different expressions throughout the school year, right, of how youth ministries navigate um the school year. And so we've
Yeah.
talked about the theme and curriculum, right? There's some other aspects I wanted to throw out at you. We already kind of mentioned caring for leaders, and so I want to unpack that a little bit more. But also, there's rhythms of the school year, right? We have
Yeah.
holidays, sports, concerts, all that kind of stuff. School calendars, huge shout out to our
Get it.
schools. Vast
Find it.
majorities of schools do a really good job of scheduling things out a long time in advance. Like our district
Years in
calendar
advance.
for our school district comes out months before the school year ever starts. And
Yeah.
so if you're planning for the school year and you don't download or print out the district school calendar in your area, highly encourage you to do
You
that.
got to do it.
Yep.
Yeah, you
We
got to
don't
do
want to
it.
compete, right?
No, print it out. Put it on your wall. You have it there. If anyone asks you,
Yep.
when's your Easter break? When's your spring break? When's
Yeah.
the Thanksgiving break for your students in your area? You want to know that so that then you can see, oh, am I going to add an event here?
Yeah.
Am I going to do something because kids are out of school? How can I use their break to connect with students, to connect with my leaders, et cetera, et cetera? I
Yep.
mean, you just have to have that, knowing when the sports teams are there, so that you can go when the sports seasons are, so you can go and see your students who are playing on the football team or whatever. You can go and catch a game
Yeah.
and
Yep.
and and you can be there with them, and
To
that plugs you into
connect.
just the community at large too. And I think that's really,
Mm.
really important. Certainly for us in the Rocky Mountain District, we're in Montana, Wyoming, and Dakotas and stuff. Right, we're all in these areas where we are mostly smaller towns, smaller
Yep.
churches.
Shout out to Idaho as well.
Idaho as
Yep.
well. I forgot.
I got you.
Don't forget Idaho. And brother lives in Nampa. It's good. And
Yep.
and uh, uh, getting out there to those sporting events, and people see you and go, "Who's this guy? Oh, he's the youth pastor for, the linebacker over there. He's here supporting," and
Yeah.
that speaks volumes to
It
that
does.
student, their parents, the family, everyone. It's awesome. Don't miss
Yep.
those opportunities.
Yep. Yeah. A wise mentor of mine once said, ministry is often about strategic presence.
That's
It's not
good.
always the fancy words that you can come up with or the best questions or the best events, but can you be present in the life of the people you're ministering to and with?
Yep.
Right, strategic
Yep.
presence. And that's what I hear you saying, right, is be strategically present. Know the sporting calendars, know the district calendars. If you're not great at that stuff, print it out, put it in your phone,
Yep.
right? Not everyone remembers everything. We all have different things that we latch onto and remember really easy, and other things that we struggle with. Put it in your phone. Everyone's got a phone pretty much that I know. Do you know anyone without a phone, Ben?
I mean,
Older than 20 years old, I should
I
say.
don't. I didn't. No, I don't know the Unabomber or anyone like that. No.
No, right. No. So, right. So leverage those things, have strategic presence 100%. Understand the rhythm of your district, your school district, and how that
Yep.
year goes. Because that's going to help. And that's what I mean. Like, we don't want to compete with those things. We want to encourage our kids to be involved, to be connected, to have relationships, because that's where they're going to have some of the best opportunities of their life to share the gospel, right? To
Heck yeah.
share what they've been learning, to share what God's been doing, and to share their faith. So we want to support those things and be a part of them. As we
I
look
love
at a
it.
calendar, right? Obviously, some trips and things like that are on the horizon for some ministries, maybe many ministries. Whether it's a missions trip or a retreat, maybe it's a one-day event, a fun activity, and things like that. And
What do
so
you got coming on in your calendar, Harry? Like, what are
we
some things you have coming out in the next
yeah, that's a
in this
great
school
question.
year for you?
We do what's called fifth quarter parties.
Yeah.
And so home football games Friday nights. After the football game, we host any and all youth that are in our community to come over to the church, and we have a bunch of food, a bunch of outdoor activities going, a bunch of indoor
Awesome.
Xboxes and Nintendo Switches and board games, cards, everything. It's just we have laser tag guns,
Yeah.
9 square going, and we just
Yeah.
try to connect to the community. The biggest piece to that is connecting with the school, building a
Yep.
relationship with the district superintendent, with your principals, the athletic director.
Heck
Right, we
yeah.
have awesome administration here in Sydney, Montana, and they're all fantastic and been great to build relationships with them. And from there, there's a trust level, right?
Yep.
And so you can start sharing different things that you're doing, and we're
How did
blessed to
you
have administrators that advertise and share different events that we got going on, like the fifth quarter party.
totally? And yeah, so how did you build those relationships? Right. I mean, that's just
Hmm.
not that doesn't just drop out of the sky,
Yeah.
right? How did you what are ways in which you got in where you were able to build those relationships with school administrators and teachers, ADs, etc.?
Yeah, right. Um, so we talk about strategic presence, right? And that doesn't
Yeah.
just apply again to kids or to parents. It applies to everyone in your community. And so going and having a little courage to call them up and ask to have lunch with them and things like that are great ways. But I found the best ways is to go and serve.
Yeah.
You'll get opportunities to sit and chat. That will happen. That will just naturally happen when you place yourself in a spot where you're serving an area that they're overseeing.
Yep.
And so when we're talking about schools and school administrators, being willing and offering up and volunteering to go serve in the school, whether it's sitting at a booth, whether it's helping out with tickets at a sporting event, whether it's helping with tutoring, whether it's so many different opportunities for people. You could go coach,
Yep.
things like that. Inroads to the school, in my opinion, best come when you serve. Go and
Yeah.
serve at your school.
Yep.
And when you do that, again, those conversations will come. Those opportunities to go have lunch and things like that will just naturally come up. And that's what we're talking about, building a relationship, not just an acquaintance, right?
Yep.
And so it takes more time and effort than just a phone call. And I think we're moving further and further away from the day of just because you have pastor in your title means everyone trusts you and everyone respects you, right? And so
Agreed.
who you are as a person, and in many ways it's a good thing, right? Just because you have that title doesn't mean you're a good person, right? We'd hope,
Mhm.
we'd want that to be true, right? But living that authentic Christ-like life outside of the church building is where you're going to have the greatest impact
Yeah. Yeah.
many times.
Yeah, and essentially what you're saying is you go to the administrators, you go to the school, and you say, "Hey, how can we serve you?" Or here's an
Absolutely.
opportunity to serve. I'm going to serve because they are thinking you're coming in. They're like, oh, there's a person from the church. The church wants something from me.
Yeah, right.
They want something from me. But instead, you flip that script and you go,
Yep.
hi, what can we want to serve you? How can
Yep.
we serve you? What is the need? Is there a tutoring? Is there this? And I mean, you can get involved in that, but if you get other people in your church involved in that, I mean, that makes so much of a difference. And then those administrators see you as a valuable part of their ability to serve their students, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
then you're there and you have opportunity. It's great. Go in and ask them, what do you
Yeah.
need? We want to serve you, and
Yep.
you'll blow their minds. They're not expecting that at all because everyone wants to come and take. That's what
Yeah.
that's their
Yep.
general existence. People
Yep.
want from them.
Well, and then you're getting in that close proximity to the youth that you're serving as well, right? You're getting those
Yeah.
opportunities, that strategic presence again
Yep.
of how can you care for, how can you love on, how can you help, how can you share.
Yeah.
And so
I love it.
serving obviously requires, no strings attached, right? It requires you to
Mm.
go and want to serve for the sake of building relationship and serving
Mhm.
and the
Yeah.
authenticity.
Yeah. So so yeah, you've got trips and other events and things. You've
Mm-hmm.
got something that's kind of community oriented around fifth quarter. I love that idea. That's a great idea. Other trips, whether it be a missions trip or retreats or things. And then I would like in regards to a retreat, right?
Mm,
You either take your whole group, right, or you can go. I just want to pour into one segment. I
yeah.
want my ninth graders, right? They just came in freshman year of high school. I want to get them, or I want to get my juniors and seniors, and really just I
Yep.
want to build up these older and young people who are going to be our leaders, and we want to identify those leaders. So we're gonna have a little retreat like that, or a missions trip. My group here in Bozeman, where we plan on our spring break, which is in March, to go on a missions trip. We're going to be going to an Envision site
Mm,
in Minneapolis. That's where we're trying to lock that in. But that's something that we do, and then we identify leaders through that, and then we have training sessions throughout the fall as we prepare for that in the winter. And so it's good stuff. Yeah, have those things planned out around that calendar and working in with the rhythms of the school year as well, and then you're solid.
yeah. Yep. 100% agree, right? And so as you're planning those things, we have to find the gaps. That's why we were talking previously of the rhythms of the school year, right?
Hmm.
Is trying not to compete with those. It can be tough. The schedule fills up really fast. And so as you're filling up your schedule, we have some more questions for you. Questions are amazing. They unlock some amazing answers. And so a couple different questions for those that are listening right now. As you're
Hmm.
putting your calendar together, how does this school year calendar advance the ministry goals and or core values that God has placed on your youth ministry,
Hmm.
right? And then as you look at your schedule, are there things on there that aren't advancing those values or those goals? Right? That's a spot or a place where we can say no to something and say yes to something else.
Yep.
Right? Another great question is how does this fall in its more condensed version? How does it lead us into the winter season? Right?
Hmm.
As you were sharing, you have kind of a curriculum and a theme that you're going to be running this fall. How is that going to lead into what you're doing in the winter? Is it going to carry on? And then you're going to need to look at how it connects to the spring. Are you going to be shifting gears when you get into the winter months, the December, January, February months? And
Yeah.
how does this help get you to that place where it's a nice, smooth transition? Right. So that's question number 2. And then question number 3, how does this fall care for your leadership team? So we've talked about
Yeah.
making sure you have balance, right? We've talked about how, we talked about curriculum and teaching, right? We talked about rhythms and understanding the sports and the concerts and all that stuff going on for the kids. We talked about trips, retreats that are going on for the students. And so we come back to this subject again for caring for our leaders. How does this fall care for our leadership team? Are there events on your calendar that are specific to your volunteers? Are there aspects of what you do on a regular basis that are specific to your leadership team? And so I'm curious, Ben, what are your thoughts on that last one there, right? The first two questions I think are pretty self-explanatory, and we've kind of unpacked those quite a bit, right?
Right,
How's the
right.
school year advance your goals? How does the, fall plan lead you into the winter? But how does your fall plan care for your leadership team? I think is a great question to ask.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Well, when once school starts in August for us, and then I give it about a month, and then kind of all the families. It takes about 3 to 4 weeks before families really, I think, to get into the groove of school. And
Yep.
then September rolls around, and then we have the holiday weekend there, and then right after that, I generally do some sort of training weekend where it's a
Mm,
Saturday or a Sunday after church. We invite our youth team in. I also do this for children's ministry as well, and we do a year training. It's an on ramp for new people. I'm in the
yeah.
summer. I'm looking for new leaders. For our youth group in the summer, we do some teaching, we do some games, and we take a break from, we call them rally points, but there are small groups, and we
Yeah.
don't do small groups in the summer. Generally because I lose some of my college students. We're a college town here in Bozeman, so some of my leaders are gone, and we just don't have the numbers to be able to do small groups how we want to. So we wait for the fall. But I'm identifying new leaders, getting them in, training them up,
Mm,
and then launching that and getting that going. So have that. We're going to Missoula, MAC, Missoula Alliance Church for the Download Youth Ministries. The
yep.
acronym is longer than I can think of it, but the
Yep.
youth
We're
training event.
hosting, we're a host site for that same youth
Oh yeah,
leader
man.
training event.
I knew
Yep.
you had talked about that, but I didn't know if you had
It's
done it. That's
official.
awesome. Oh
Yep.
man, that is
All you Eastern
it's
Montanans, North Dakotans, South Dakotans, even Wyoming, if you want to come on up, you're welcome to join us.
just listen to me now. You want to go. You want to go to that.
You definitely want to
You
go.
absolutely want to do that. Go to downloadyouthministry.com, and then you'll see
Yep.
like volunteer training events. You can click on
Yep.
that. There's a map of the country.
Yep.
It's all over. It's
It's called
great.
the National Day of Training, volunteer training.
Yeah, it's because they have the acronym. It's super
Oh,
long to
yeah.
be confusing
National
and
Day
silly.
of Volunteer Youth Ministry Training is the full title, just to make sure that we're saying it accurately. It's September 23rd, 2023. It's a one-day
we
event that is just packed with amazing resource and encouragement for our youth volunteers and leaders. So,
Yeah,
yep,
and
this is a
we're not
can't miss.
we're just plugging this out of our own because we've been there and we know it's good, right? Yeah,
100%.
that's it. So do that, but just having an opportunity to train your leaders, and
Mm-hmm.
then find out that time where you can take one out, where you just rotate them through, take them out for coffee, get send them a little card,
Mm-hmm.
snail mail. I'm all about it. Writing them a
Yep.
card where they get it in the mail, where it has a handwritten note with like a
Mm.
$5 Starbucks gift card, or hey, if your budget's
Yep.
real low, just a thank you card in and of itself. They will take a bullet for you if you do
Yep.
stuff like that. They'll do whatever you ask
Yep.
because they know that you care for them.
One of the great blessings of having a family is the blessing your family can be on others. Invite your volunteers over for a meal at your house
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
let your family love on your volunteers. It's one of the
Yeah.
greatest things that I've seen God provide is opportunities for my family to love on people by inviting them over and just letting my family and its energy and excitement and exuberance and things like that just love on people.
Yep.
And right, that fits into everyone's budget pretty much that I know of. Um,
Absolutely. That's
invite
so
them over
good.
for a meal. It doesn't have to be everyone at the same time. It could be do a cookout for everyone, but you can offer more intimate times of good conversation and things like that by just inviting just a couple over at a time and things like that too. So
That's right on. That's right on. That is so easy, and also then your family is blessed by them too. It works.
Yeah,
It
right.
works both ways for sure.
100%.
Yeah.
100%, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So I want to bring this back around and just review really quick. We've
Let's
covered a
do
lot of
it.
different things today, right? The conversation for today again was preparing for fall launch. How do we step into this and step into it well, right? And so we've talked about opportunities and things like that. Two main questions that we posed at the beginning that we want and encourage. We want for ourselves to start with and encourage anyone else, any other youth leaders to start with, right? Is how do your fall plans advance the ministry goals and core values God has laid out for you? And then
Mhm.
also, how do your fall plans then equip and build up
Mhm.
yourself, the youth, and your leaders, right? So, how
Yeah.
basically, what does God want for you? Do your fall plans follow in those goals and core values? And how are you going to step out and do those things? And so, as we look at that, then we looked at some different avenues that most youth ministries kind of go through and navigate throughout the school year, right? What's your theme and curriculum, teaching, and all that good stuff? How are you going to care for your leaders? Understanding the rhythms of your school and school year. What are some trips or retreats, one day event things that you're going to be doing? And then as you're compiling your whole calendar together, understanding that we still want to look at it through the lens of what has God called your ministry to, the goals,
Yeah.
the values, and be
Yeah.
able to filter out what is going to advance what God has called you to and maybe what isn't. Maybe there's something that you've done for 4 years in a row that you've you know figured out that this doesn't really press forward, what God has for us, and it's time
Yeah.
for something new,
Yeah.
right? And then
You call that a sacred cow.
yeah,
And if
right.
you've been doing those things for so long, we've been doing it, and then you go, why
Yep.
are we still doing it? Might be
Yep.
time to get rid of that thing. It was
Yeah.
good. It's not bad, but sometimes you need that change for sure.
Amen. Amen to that. And it can be tough, especially when you've done it and you have great memories of it being done. Right? That
Yeah.
can be the difficult hurdle sometimes, but a necessary one as we want to be purposeful, intentional in everything that we're doing.
Exactly.
Right? And
Exactly.
so really all of this, right, is being funneled through this common goal that all youth ministries have, right? Which is helping new and returning students connect with
Hmm.
where God is leading, right? And the ministry that God has for them, right? And
Yeah.
so I mean that's our goal. Everyone has uniqueness within that, right? But how do we help students connect with God to what He is doing and where He's leading them? And
Yeah.
so build relationship with them and all that good stuff. And so I guess I would say that at the end, my encouragement to anyone listening is don't get lost in the weeds of I've got this huge checklist I've got to get done and there's so much to do and I don't have time and energy. Remember, we're here to love on our youth, to help
Yeah.
show them who God is,
Yeah.
to point them to the source that's going to bring them the happiness, the joy, the peace, the love that we can never give in its fullness like God can give. Only
That's
God can
right.
give all those things in their fullness. And that's
Hmm.
what we want students to connect to that and to have that relationship, submit to that leadership and authority in their life. And so, yeah, 3 questions that we want to have at the end of every episode. No matter what we talk about, 3 questions that are going to help you in navigating youth ministry is how does what we talked about, how does this affect you? How does this affect your leaders? And how does this affect your students? Whenever you're coming up to making a decision, those are 3 questions
Yeah.
we just always want to keep at the forefront. How does this affect you? How does it affect your leaders? How does this affect your students? And
I
so,
love
with
it.
all of that said, Ben, how do you feel? We just
I feel great.
we came to the close
Yeah.
of our very first episode. Do you have any parting thought that you want to have, or that you have for any of our youth leaders out there?
Oh man, I just get your core values down, run it through the
Mm,
Great Commission, Great Commandment, have the gospel in there, and just know that that's the most powerful thing we got is the gospel,
yes.
power to transform lives, and man, that's why I'm here. It's because of the power
Amen.
of the gospel, and let's never let's never forget it. That Jesus' blood, it's not tap water. It's powerful to transform lives. And when we're in the thick of it, and we're thinking about events and things, we're getting all busy and all that stuff. Sometimes we can think, oh man, can people really change? And the answer is yes. And it's because of the gospel. And I think that's what we're wanting to funnel everything through. And as we're serving people, and again, I think those last three questions: how does this affect you? How does this affect your leaders? How is this going to affect your students? And where are you gonna pour in to build young people up? And we also want to see souls saved, man.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
I love it. Again, this is Third Thursday Podcast, episode 1.
Yeah.
Our goal here is to connect, encourage, and equip our youth leaders. This is a resource of the Rocky Mountain District Christian Missionary Alliance. Again, my name is Harry Ozarek, youth point person here in the Rocky Mountain District, and Ben McEntee.
Yes, say my last name. Just say it. Come on. He doesn't want to say it.
It's Ben McEntee. I just wanted to see what he'd say. Listen, no one can spell my last name. All right,
I know. Listen, if you like this podcast and you want to, is this going to go up on like Apple? Is it going to be up on everything?
We hope for it to go up everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, perfect. Listen, I think it should. Then we want you to just try and spell Harry's last name.
There you go.
Leave that in the comments. Whatever.
Leave it in the comments. Do it, Ozarek.
Yeah.
I'll say it one more time for the people out there. Ozarek.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
And it's Polish.
There's a silent Q in there, I think. No, that's not true. That's not true.
Next episode we'll have a challenge to spell Ben McEntee's last name. How about that?
Yeah, I like it. Awesome.
All right. Thank you all for joining. And God's blessings on you all. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Third Thursday Podcast. We hope you feel connected, encouraged, and equipped to reach students with the gospel. You can find more resources at rmdcma.com/youth. If this content was helpful for you, make sure to share it with a friend. See you next time.